Hello there. In this video I'm going to show you how you can make this pentagonal pendant with it's a Greek pattern that we've got here that's just replicated around the pendant. And you'll notice there's also a letter A. You can put any letter of the alphabet in the centre of this, and also a gemstone. So I'm going to show you how you can create this using Fluid Designer for 3D printing and the parametric smart objects that are available within the software. So first of all, we start off Fluid Designer for 3D printing. Now we're going to do pendants. Now I'm going to use a number of different objects here. I'm going to use this 35mm pentagonal pendant object, but before I do that, I'll just show you the Greek object that we're going to use, the Greek curve. So we're going to use this curve here, and if I just drag and drop that onto the workspace first of all and just scroll back, you can see here that it comes with some modifiers already set up for you, and if we change the columns here, you can see that what we can generate is a circular pattern. So that's already built into that Greek pattern. But I want to put this inside a pentagonal pendant. So I'm going to do that first. I'm going to open the pendant up first of all. So I'm going to use this, let's see, where was it? So I'm going to use this one here, 35mm pentagonal pendant. So I'll just drag and drop that onto the workspace. And so what I need to do in terms of getting the Greek one onto here as well is I need to go to the pendants folder and append the object. So we do that by going to File and Append. And if you go to the Groups folder first of all, and we're looking for pendants, and the object that I'm looking for is the classical Greek curve pendant, and it was actually 001A was the file name of it, so I need to select that object. So it's the classic Greek curve pendant 001A object that I need to append from the library. And you can see if I zoom in that that's what we've got there. Now when you got the red outline here, it's not actually selected, so if I just click on it, make sure it is selected, you can see that we've got the same modifiers now as we had before. These have been imported with it, and if I just click on the count, I can change the number of times that appears. So at the moment you can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I've got 6 copies of this Greek pattern, but that looks a little bit strange when you're inside a pentagon. So what I really need to do is I really need to change this to be 5, and the way that this is actually controlled is by using this angular rotation object here. This is what determines this. So if I go over to my control panel, and sometimes you might have to just play around in here until you find the right object, but I want the angular rotation object. And if we look at the main information icon, you can see that the rotation value for Z, that's going into the screen, is set at 60. Now 6 times 60 is 360 degrees. We want 5 times something to give us 360 degrees, so we actually need to change this to 72. 5 times 72 will give us 360 degrees, and you'll see that the pattern changed there. And so with a count of 5 now, we've got a complete circle of this Greek pattern. Now you've got to be very careful in Fluid Designer that you don't do 6 or 7, because that means that you've got one on top of here and one on top of here, and if you do that you'll have real problems in 3D printing this. So always double check that you're not duplicating objects. So we've got 5 there. Now I'm not actually going to settle for 5, because although this is a pentagon, what I'm going to do is I want to create 2 of these objects for each side, so I want to actually change this to 10. And the way that we can do that is if we go to angular rotation again, and if we change this 72, if we half it, if we half the 72 to 36, then we'll need 10 of these to complete the 360 degrees. So if we half this number here, we'll need twice as many objects in our of our Greek pattern objects to complete the circle. So we go back to the modifiers again, and if we just complete this, we can go round to 10 there now. So is that the finished thing? Well, at the moment it's not quite in the right position, it's not sized quite right. Well, there's a different ways that you can do this. One is I can move this one out here and see is it fitting properly. As you can see, it's not quite touching on all sides. So what I really need to do is I need to change the scale of this pattern, make it just a little bit bigger. Now if I switch off the snap here, and I'll just switch on screencast keys so you can see the key presses I'm going to make. If I press S on the keyboard, I can scale this object up slightly, and I only want to change it very slightly. Now notice as I do that, something weird happens to this pattern here. Now whenever you scale objects in Fluid Designer, whenever you scale curves, you've got to do Control A and apply the scale, and what that will do is reset the pattern back to the correct sort of size. So you must do that if you're scaling curves. So if I just view it from the top again now, so if I just move this, let's just see how this fits around it now. Have I gone a little bit too big perhaps? Yeah, I've made my object just a little bit too big, so let's go back in. Let's just scale it back again down slightly and do Control A and apply the scale. And if we just move our pentagon now, yeah, that's better. We've got an overlap here, we've got an overlap here, we've got an overlap, an overlap and an overlap. So we've got it looking okay there. Yeah, that's not too bad. So the center is the right sort of size now. Now in order to get this perfect, what we should do is, with the pentagon highlighted, if I just snap the selection to the cursor, that will put it back in the center of the screen. Now before you put this pattern back in the center of the screen, because this is a curve and there are these modifiers here, we must apply the modifiers, and the way to do that really is to convert this object to a mesh. And then if we go Tools, Object Tools, and set the origin to the geometry, at the moment the origin is here for this object. If we set the origin to the geometry of it, so that's now in the center of this curve pattern, and then if I snap the selection to the cursor, it will move it now back to 0, 0. So my curve pattern is right in the middle of the pendant now, and it's lined up correctly on all sides. So if I just view that from the top. Now what I want to do now is I'm going to put a character, a letter of the alphabet in here, and so what I'm going to do, I can't see any patterns here, so if I just click on the group library button, that will just refresh my pattern list, and I'm going to use a Harrington font. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to append this Harrington font letter. You can obviously use any letter of the alphabet. Append this and place it in the center of my pendant here. So what I need to do is to go to Patterns, Harrington font, and I need to append the A object. So if I go to File and Append, just go up through the menu system until you get to the Groups folder, and I'm going to use the alphabet Harrington font, and I'm going to use Harrington font A, and you always append the objects. So it's Harrington font A object, and just append that from the library. And again, to make sure it is actually selected, do click on it a second time until you get the yellow outline. Now here's my pendant hole, so I actually need to turn this upside down, so I can just rotate it about the Z-axis 180 degrees. That will just turn it upside down. And I now need to get it overlapping with the Greek pattern here. So what I need to do is to press S on the keyboard again and scale it up until it's just touching, or it's overlapping in some way with the Greek pattern. And remember, whenever you scale an object like this, you must always do Control A and apply the scale, and notice that the object shrinks back to 2 millimeters thickness as you do that. So that's something that's very important to do. Okay, so so there's our letter A now. which will 3D print once we join the objects together. Now I could add in a further object here. I could add in a gem bezel. Okay, so I could append that in a similar sort of way. So depending upon the shape of the gem you've got, you could actually append a gem bezel and put it in the center here so that you can actually fit in the gem. I'm not going to show you how to do that in this video. You can go and see our ring tutorials to see how that's done. But what I'm going to do is need to complete this by actually changing these objects into curves, into meshes, and to join it all together. So I've got the A highlighted at the moment. If I just click on the pendant outline at the same time and just join those two objects together, and then if I actually change this to a mesh now, and then I've still got to join the pattern to the A and the pendant. So if I hold down the shift key and click on the A or the pendant, it doesn't matter which, and if I just join them together now, what I should have is I've got one object now. And really all I need to do to complete this and to make it 3D printable is to export it either as an OBJ or as an STL file. I tend to use OBJ, so I'm going to save it to the desktop, and it's my 35mm pentagonal pendant with a Greek pattern. So I just save that to the desktop. I'll just take a few seconds while it converts it all. And then what you need to do is to just go to Netfab Basic, and you always need to do this when working with Fluid Designer. So if you go to Netfab Basic and open this object up from the desktop, so it's my 35mm pendant with a Greek pattern. Now you're probably going to find that there are some errors in this, but it's not a problem because yeah, we've got a warning red triangle. But if we just click on repair, and you can see there are some border edge problems and some holes, not as bad as it sounds. So you just click automatic repair, and if I click on update, you'll see that border edges and orientation and holes have all been repaired. So you just click apply repair and remove the old part, and you can see the warning red triangle has disappeared. And so there's our Greek style pendant with a letter A in the center. So if we just go to part, export it as a wavefront object, and I'll just write on top of the file there. And that's it. That's your printable file format. Okay, so that's how you can use parametric smart objects in Fluid Designer for 3D printing to create a simple pendant. And you can obviously personalize it by putting any character in the center there. Okay, thank you.